First story. Human Resources questioned me for hours about AX injury. This happened a few weeks ago, and I'm hoping it's resolved. But I'm at a loss as to what I could have done differently. In my personal life, I enjoy BDSM. I keep it out of my work life. Obviously, I don't ask anyone to call my partner's master or wear obvious collars. However, one time, I made a decision that left me with a visible face injury that was not easily covered. Not the best judgment call on my part. But I wasn't in a ton of pain or anything. I went into work the next day and made an excuse. Luckily, I play roller derby as well, so I can explain most things away. However, I have a co-worker, Mary, who has noted my bruises, arms, legs in the summer when shorts are dress code appropriate before, and asked if I was safe at home. She dropped it once I said yes. But the visible face injury seemed to concern her. She did not approach me. Instead was asking around. I also have a friend on staff, Lee. We do a lot of stuff outside of work together. We talk about everything. I know a lot about Lee's relationships and they know a lot about mine. When Mary asked them, Lee thought they were doing me a favor by saying that it wasn't overwhelming. It was BDSM. Needless to say, they were not. Mary went to Human Resources and told them that I was flaunting the injury as a sole trophy. I guess I had to endure hours of questioning about my injury. How I got hurt. What exactly happened. Who I told. I had to reveal to more people than I cared to say about my activities. I told them that I got it from my partner consensually but refused to give further details. I thought lying might be wrong somehow. I panicked. I wish I had stuck to the derby story. Honestly. And I had to assert that at no point did I ever mention it to Mary, and that I wasn't actively getting off on showing people my injury. I was humiliated. And Mary won't talk to me. And she's still telling people I'm disgusting. I don't know if I should have stayed home or what. If I had gotten the bruise in roller derby, I would have gone in just the same, and it would have never been this huge thing. But maybe because I got it doing a more taboo hobby, I made a mistake. Should I have stayed home? Is there anything I could have done other than apparently not befriending Lee? Is it soul harassment? I feel awful. Should I just cut my losses and look for another job? Note: Allison's response is great as usual and includes how Human Resources can help people without getting into their business. Update. So it took me a while to figure out how to update you because surprise, there's some legal stuff still going on that I don't think I should talk about. First things first. The injury itself was a huge rope burn across my face. This probably contributed to why I didn't stick with roller derby to begin with. Black eye. Derby for sure. Rope burn. The how is a little vaguer there. Still, you and other commenters are right that if I could do it again, I would stick with it and never back down. Second, turns out Lee, the friend co-worker who outed me, is well known in our local scene for being someone who outs those in kink, so that's fun to know. I have cut ties and honestly, it really has been good for me. I never noticed a lot of friendship failings before, and wow. Now I sure do. I did talk to a lawyer and I did talk to Human Resources. Human Resources was not receptive, and I had to move forward with the lawyer. There's stuff happening there. Also, I don't have a job at the moment. I just couldn't stay there. But Mary also doesn't have a job, so there. It is because she quit and not because she got fired though. She didn't want to work in a place that wouldn't fire a deviant. Gosh. I don't know what else I could tell you. I feel better largely even if I'm unemployed at the moment. I'm doing a few freelancing gigs and even got paid to teach a kink class. I could be way worse. Update to the update. Okay. So I spoke with my lawyer and she said that I can mention the stuff with Mary because she's not actually involved in the lawsuit at all. Also, you have a new fan in my lawyer. So, Mary, in the time between me deciding what to do after your letter and me leaving my job just got crazier and crazier. She was determined that I was being kept as a ex-slave, and that the people I worked with were in a conspiracy to keep me in subjugation. She printed out human trafficking reports and posted them everywhere. She called the cops once. Surprisingly, none of this got her fired. When she found out I was quitting, she tried to get the address that I live at from Human Resources. But that, at least, they were smart about. That was the day she quit. Lee thought this was all hilarious. By the way, they even put some pictures up on Instagram. Anyways, I have an interview tomorrow, so cross your fingers for me. I completely get the initial concern. Even after OP stated that she was safe at home. It's hard enough to admit to yourself that you're being abused. Who the hell is just gonna say to a co-worker, "You know what, Mary? You're right. My significant other tries to make me have the crap out of me every time I fold his shirts wrong. No one is gonna do that. But you don't press. If you're concerned, you give some information. You make it known that you are a safe person. Then you let it go and maintain contact that is appropriate for the environment. Period. Duck. Mary and Lee are terrible people. I agree with you completely. Around 20 years ago, I was in an overwhelming relationship. I was new to the state as he and I had moved here together. And so obviously I was new at my job. I tried to hide my abuse. But one day on a break, a co-worker just asked me in the most casual tone, "Is Matt nice to you?" That was it. That's all she said. I tried to shrug it off and change the subject. But that question absolutely burned into my brain. Because he was not nice to me. It was such a simple concept. My co-worker was a smart lady though. She could see the truth. A couple of days later, she gave me a handwritten list of other co-workers' phone numbers and told me that every single person on that list said I could come live with them so I could leave Matt. I was shocked by the kindness. Shocked to my core. I barely knew these people. Because of fear and pride, I still acted casual and just thanked her. But for the next week or so, I kept that list physically on my person 24 hours a day. If I had to shower or something, I would very carefully hide that phone list. One evening, as I was meticulously hiding it, I finally realized the truth of my situation. No one who was safe and happy would be so obsessed with the list. And if I was really safe, why would I feel compelled to hide the list from Matt? I came to work the next morning and told my coworkers that they were right. I wasn't safe. He often beat me. I told them I couldn't go home. They were champions about it. Someone went on their lunch break and got me a toothbrush and some other sundries. I went to a coworker's house that night. On my next day off, my huge cousin, who was my only family in the area, went with me to get my clothes and books, etc. A month later, I had my own apartment and was happier than I'd ever been. Those thoughtful and courageous coworkers saved my life with their selfless help. They didn't have to do anything, but they all stepped up to help me. Within a year, I was promoted to a top position at that job. Because of the help my coworkers gave me, I was able to not just be free and safe. I was able to flourish. Side note. Just remembering this to type it out has me anxious and sweating like a pig. It's amazing how trauma stays with you. I'm fine. By the way, I have a great therapist. It's just stressful to type it out. That's when it sunk in that I was in a bad situation. When I received kindness from someone who wasn't obligated to be kind. Genuine kindness was foreign to me. It actually made me uncomfortable. It took months for me to sort out those feelings. I'm so glad you're okay now. And I'm on my way to being okay. Thank you. I completely understand. I hope that you find safety and happiness. I wish you the best. Second story. My co-worker keeps joking that I'm having sex with my husband in the office. My husband and I work for the same employer in different departments. Our physical workspaces are in different buildings in the same office park. We usually carpool and meet in the parking lot. But we are rarely in the same building at the same time. And if we are, it's for work reasons. Most people know that we are married. But we keep things professional at work because I want to be known for my work. Not as a wife. One of our coworkers used to work in my husband's department. They have always gotten along and had a joking relationship. She's now transferred to my department. And she will not stop making jokes about me having sex with my husband at work. If she sees that my office door has been shut, she'll say, "I assumed you and were having sex on the desk and didn't want to bother you." If she sees us parting ways in the morning, she'll make a gag about how we must have been having sex in the car. It happens nearly every time she sees me. In private or in front of coworkers. It makes no difference. It is mortifying when she makes comments like this. Especially when she does it in front of people 2 or 3 levels above me. This is not how I want to be thought of at work. I always respond with something along the lines of course not. My door was closed because I was on a private call. But she never seems to get the hint. I know I should say something directly. But she clearly wants to be friends, and I don't want to completely ruin the relationship. She really does think this is a funny joke to bond over. There's nothing mean-spirited about it. I'd have my husband address it since they're much closer. But they never see each other anymore since the transfer. Any scripts? Update. Thanks for answering my question. I would like to address a couple things that came up in the comments before getting into the update. There were a lot of comments about going straight to hour about this. While I get where people were coming from, I wanted to address it directly with my co-worker before making a serious complaint. I knew I could always escalate if it went poorly. Lots of comments about how she must have a crush on me or my husband. I know it's easy to extrapolate from letters where you don't have all the information. But that is definitely not the case. A few people asked if this was something my husband was in on or if this was the norm in his department. Nope. He thought it was just as weird as I did, and she hadn't made that type of joke when they worked together. They joked. But about common interests. On to the update. The day after my letter was posted, my co-worker caught me walking into the building and made one of her usual cracks. Since we were alone, it felt like the perfect time to address it. And I used a version of commenter Naomi's script. "Hey, I know you're just kidding around, but I really worry that someone who doesn't know better will take you seriously. Husband and I try really hard to keep things professional at work, and I really don't want anyone to get the wrong idea." You could see the penny drop. She apologized profusely and even brought me a coffee later in the day to make amends. I've also overheard her a few times since hyping up my work and professionalism to our coworkers. So I know she's taken it to heart. We like different hockey teams, so I've started gently teasing her about that. It's given us common ground, and now we have something work appropriate to joke about. I know that a lot of commenters were concerned that she wasn't really my friend, and that I couldn't see that she was trying to bully me or bring me down professionally. I hope that this update has put that fear to rest. She really is a nice person. I think she was falling back on the one thing she knew about me, my marriage, to try to bond, and she just missed the mark. Third story. Guy 37 male, I 36 female was found out something unsavory about my past and reported me to our employer. I 36 female was fortunate to have a long and loving marriage to a wonderful man for 12 years. Sadly, he passed away in a car accident 2 years ago, just before the beginning of the pandemic. Between grieving and the pandemic, I did not date at all for about a year and a half. But decided to try to get out and meet some people this past summer once it was after. Online dating was kind of a bust. But in the fall I connected with Joe, 37 male, who works at the same large company as me but in a completely different department. We are not in the same chain of command, and our paths do not cross at all in terms of work. We met at the employee gym. We had lunch a few times and ultimately decided to start spending time together outside of work, evolving to a relationship we agreed to describe as committed, casual as in monogamous, but just having fun and not planning for a future together. We initially decided to do things this way because Joe is relocating this coming summer to another company office across the country. So with an expiration date looming, wanted to enjoy each other's company without any particular expectations. This worked well for me too, because a big part of me was still grieving my husband, and as of a few months ago, I was not ready to think about a lifetime commitment to anyone else. About a week ago, Joe told me he was really falling for me and might want to rethink the casual categorization. I told him I was feeling the same way, but that I had to tell him something about my past with the understanding that it might be a deal breaker. Specifically, I had a very rough upbringing with parents who were both alcoholics, addicts. Instead of going in a bad direction, I threw myself into school and managed to graduate early from high school and got a full scholarship to college at the age of 16. However, when I got to college, despite having my tuition, room and board covered, I was still broke and didn't have enough money for things like clothes, toiletries, etc. I really struggled for the first couple months due to my age being under 18. I was turned down for the on-campus jobs I applied for. The father of one of my college friends, a divorced man in his 40s, who lived in the local town, noticed my difficulties and offered to help me. I realize now that he was overwhelming me into entering into a sugar daddy baby type relationship, but didn't see it at the time. He bought me food and clothes, mentored me when I had trouble in my classes, and gave me a place to go when I wanted to get off campus. Our relationship didn't turn soul for a few months, but eventually it did. 16 was the age of consent in this state, so technically this was not illegal, although very morally wrong in retrospect. It lasted throughout the time I was 16-17, and really did help me survive. Mostly it was him buying me practical things I needed for school or just living, not luxury items, with a small amount of pocket money, $40 here and there. When I turned 18, we mutually decided to end it, and I was able to get a couple part-time on-campus jobs. I graduated at 20, went on to get a master's degree, and now have a good career. I never had further contact with the older man. My classmate, who was his daughter, ended up transferring to another college, and we lost touch, although I did look him up online now and then over the years and understand he passed away a few years ago. I never repeated this sort of arrangement with anyone else. I met my husband a couple years after things ended with the older guy, and he knew everything and accepted me. Back to Joe, I would have completely understood him not wanting to have an emotionally serious relationship for someone who essentially made it through college as an ex-worker. So I wasn't that surprised that he was upset and angry, and that he broke up with me. However, I didn't expect that he would go to our mutual employer, telling them I had hidden my ex-work past and asking them to discipline me for misconduct. I just found out about this on Friday and am reeling. I know what I did was wrong, at least morally speaking. But I was under 18, and it was about 20 years ago. I don't think my ex-life as a teenager 2 decades ago is my employer's business. I have to go in for a meeting about it on Tuesday, and am just sick with worry that I am going to get fired. So I guess I am just looking for opinions here. Like, how in the wrong am I? Should I try to apologize to Joe? What should I say to my employer? I am feeling very lost and scared. Update. For those who don't want to read through the full post, I am a young widow, 36 female, who just started dating again a few months ago after my husband passed a couple years ago. I ended up casually dating Joe, 37, male, a co-worker not in my department or chain of command at the same large company. All went very well until, in the name of full disclosure, I felt I should tell him about my past sugar baby relationship. When I was in college, I was 17 at the time. The man was in his 40s, and I realize in retrospect he overwhelmed me and had no other family support. In case it was a deal breaker. It did indeed end up being a deal breaker in that I was dumped immediately. But he also went to our company's hour to report that I should be disciplined for being an ex-worker in the past. I know many folks requested an update after my meeting with Human Resources that took place earlier this week. First, I did retain an attorney who accompanied me to the meeting. Unfortunately, it didn't really help in this case, as I was fired for cause no severance or transition period due to the potential to bring scandal shame to the company from my past as a prostitute. Even though my company doesn't have a morality clause restricting sexual behavior or anything. Even though it was 20 years ago. And even though it was one relationship and not ongoing escort work. Yes. I am exploring further legal action both against my former company and Joe. Mostly against the company as I am investigating. For example, if they have penalized women for their sexual past but not men. Thankfully I have been very careful with money and have enough set aside to manage for up to a few years if needed until I can get this resolved. I know this isn't the most satisfying update, but I know a lot of people were curious about what would happen at the meeting. I do remain grateful for so many kind comments on my original post. Info. No. I am not going to name and shame in terms of the company. Wish I could. But after this post thread I won't be discussing further to avoid compromising my case maybe way down the road once any legal issues are resolved. Hit like if you enjoyed this video. Consider subscribing to our channel.